Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. It's Sal and Bart here from Trio Stories. We are back with a juicy vid.
We're here to break down our most recent short film, The Night Shift, which was shot entirely on the Xiaomi Mi 11 phone. We're going to go through all the nitty-gritty, the lighting, the settings, the tools we used, and the method to the madness.
As we may have already previously mentioned, this was our biggest production yet.
Probably our biggest production yet. Probably the biggest project we've ever done.
The biggest project of our career so far. It was a big one.
Huge deal to be on set.
Did we mention we had a lighting guy?
Yeah. We had a lighting guy. So if you haven't already seen our short film, it will be available in the description below and on a card up here. We invite you to watch this.
And then head straight back here for the breakdown. To very briefly outline this project, Xiaomi released their new phone, the Mi 11, and they asked us to create a short film using this phone that will go along with the launch of the premiere.
That's us.
Shall we crack on then?
I think we must begin.
Let's go.
Okay, so first up we've got the time lapse, which is the opening scene setting the context for our film. The idea here was to transition from day to night. However, we did turn up on the dullest day probably of the year. The weather did not treat us very well, so we needed to add a keyframe grade, sort of exposure change, to enhance that change in light to the night time.
Ideally, under perfect circumstances, to get a day to night transition, you would need to be there 5+ hours to really get that transition from hopefully blue skies to twilight time. So you've got that definite change. We only had a couple of hours, so we just had to make do with what we got there.
The exposure change was one element that I think enhanced it really well in post, and secondly, we also added a very believable snow overlay from Storyblocks.
We're the only video on YouTube that's not sponsored by Storyblocks.
Not sponsored by Storyblocks. It was lightly snowing, so this gave it a little bit more.
We had no idea that the lights were going to come on, which was amazing because it gave us the opportunity for that. If you want to see some shots of us suffering, we've got a little creative vlog. That's more of a behind the scenes, an opportunity for you to laugh at us struggling somewhat.
A bit more personal.
And also this was all shot on the time-lapse feature of the Mi 11. So let's do a before and after so you can see what the time-lapse looked like straight out of camera and what it looked like in the final film.
Nice.
Next up is the security guard walking around doing his thing.
I think this bit is really important. It looks cinematic, builds anticipation.
This was all lit with a single aperture light. I believe it was an aperture. Irrelevant. Yeah. Big ass light.
Some big
with
diffusion.
A huge diffusion thing on a very tall light stand. And then also our lighting guy.
Did we mention that? We had a lighting guy.
He kind of walked alongside Bart in these scenes, lighting up the side profile of the guard from the opposite direction.
Yeah, just filling in that shadow side and...
the fill light,
yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh yeah, this is the scene where, the scene where he walks into the green room.
Yeah, I feel like we may have been overly ambitious to some extent with this scene, given that we were using a phone and not the A7S III, for example. This was a pitch black room, but I think it turned out really well.
In this room, we've actually got a big ass light, creating a spotlight in the doorway where the night guard walks into. Yeah,
so this was actually really concentrated with kind of quite a limited field of spotlight. It was a spotlight, yeah.
We've got someone on the left of the door holding a tube light. We've got a light outside in the entrance, the big diffuser, that's also hitting this left door with this nice little golden patch. And then there's also a couple of little aperture MCs, are they called, the little ones, behind a lovely statue and behind another statue just to create that depth. And the main light here, the practical, was the night guard using the torch. And yeah, some lighting in a very dark room. Like, we already knew how important lighting was, but then this short film was just ingrained that even more. Like, lighting is everything.
And especially with mobile filmmaking in general, because it's a much smaller sensor, it's going to pick up light very differently than a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, so you have to maximize the opportunity of good light.
More so than choosing between, you know, the 8K, 4K or 1080 options.
Yeah, or the motion or whatever. The lighting is the one thing
is key
that will give you that killer shot or not.
So with regards to lighting, I think in future we would add more light in here, but we were really constrained on time and we needed to be.
Yeah.
So one amazing thing that I found in this experience was how much the creative brain and mind can come to life under pressure. We did have a whole set relying on us and our sort of instruction and direction, and I feel like I really thrived in this.
So I was walking around with a clipboard like.
This shot here with the torch hitting the statue, that was completely not planned, not storyboarded, and I think that added a lot to that scene, and it kind of added a dramatic sort of spike. If it hadn't been there, it would have been so...
It would have been lacking a little bit, because there would have been only the sort of finale climax, but before there wouldn't have been much excitement, whereas this is a little spike of the heart rate, and especially with the sound effect as well.
And the idea as well was it was taken away from the fact that he has just swiped the light across the dancer statue as well. So it's sort of like
it was a misdirection.
Misdirection.
Call us Dynamo.
This is actually probably a good time to bring up as well that the short film was meticulously scripted.
Yeah, it was really well researched and planned.
Planned, storyboarded. We had multiple shot lists and shot list orders.
We had numerous meetings in advance with like the team in Krakow that sent us videos and photos of the different rooms. There was practical restrictions such as some artwork couldn't be shown. There was a lot of research that went into it.
So it is really funny that some of our favourite shots are not planned.
Yeah, so I guess the pro tip kind of from this, the takeaway is plan 1000%, but then when you're on set, don't be afraid to creatively stray from it.
Okay.
Moving on.
So this next scene,
A cracker.
Our favourites. Also unplanned. But yeah, when we were on scene and we saw this staircase and looked over the edge, we were like, this needs to be in the shot.
Wow.
And this was actually where the lighting guy shone.
The real MVP.
You missed my pun.
I did get I thought I was building on it, you know. I saw
you interrupted it. It was a great pun and you were like, oh, real MVP. Should have been like, hey. The lighting guy really shone. He figured out that there's a balcony just outside to the left and he was like, I'm gonna go try and see if we can get a light outside, and it looked like moonlight coming in. So we were like, do your thing. And he did.
Magic happened.
Magic. It turned out to be a really important location and more shots ended up being done here because we were such a big fan of the lighting.
It created a real vibe.
And then yeah, the shot from above.
The top down.
The top down. It's the money shot, isn't it?
Yeah, I absolutely love this shot. I love these shots on the drone. So being able to do it indoors on the spiral staircase with this kind of multi-level lighting, it just all sort of came together.
I think this was a small product of location scouting as well, because the day before when we arrived in Krakow, we went to the museum in the daytime to sort of have a look for the first time, and the sunlight was shining through at the bottom.
Yeah.
Had we not gone in the day and seen that light shining through, would we have thought to add a light there?
It was key. It was absolutely key.
And speaking of that, actually, obviously you've got the light coming through the window as the moonlight. There is a second light doing the exact same thing lower down.
Yeah, just to show that
moonlight
multi-level staircase, let's say.
Radiation.
Station.
Then there's a few warm aperture MCs, and yeah, that's the magic of lighting again. And to get this shot, we literally just leaned over the edge. Well, Bart did. I did not. Leaned over the edge of the balcony with the phone on the gimbal, just a little bit. Popped
it down on the gimbal.
Sketchy.
Yeah, it did feel sketchy. I was really concerned.
Because the mount of the gimbal is literally just a little friction thing.
We had a spare phone, so in case this one did drop to its absolute
demise,
oblivion.
We did get a number of shots from this staircase looking absolutely fabulous, including multiple angles of the silhouette. But being a good editor is knowing when not to include banger shots, so I'm just going to take my hat off to myself there.
Well done, good work.
So this first close-up here of the statue is actually a frame hold. I added a keyframe zoom in and also another overlay, a little dust particle overlay, also from Storyblocks.
When I first saw that, I absolutely loved that. I thought that it's quite subtle, but it added so much.
My idea was to obviously make it look like there was camera movement whilst the statue was obviously perfectly still. The only way to get the statue perfectly still was to
hold the frame.
hold the frame.
Hold the door. Hold on.
This is actually the exact same idea with the opening of the eye. It was a single frame with the eye closed and then released into normal speed.
This is where the magic of cinema really comes to life with these kind of details. Big Saz, you know, on the edit. Big respect. Since the music has kicked in a little bit here, I think it's a good time to discuss this huge part of this production, the music.
I'm actually really happy as well about how many comments we've had about the music.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that people have noticed the quality and the intention. We are over the moon with this track. That's because it is actually an original score. Big shout out to Bartek Gruchała, who is a really talented music composer that we had the pleasure of working with on this project. What an experience that was for us as well, to collaborate and kind of give our ideas how the music should develop. Kind of, we were saying we want it to be building here, we want it to be anxious here, we want more energy here, and he was really putting that to life with the notes, with the instruments being used. So
but it was also an amazing experience as an editor, because normally you've got the idea for the film and you try and find a song, or you find a song before and then you have to edit to it, and you're quite restricted in the sense that, okay, like there's some beats here, I need to make these cuts. But with this we had like complete freedom, and that was really special.
So how it actually worked, we found a couple of songs on Artlist, each the right vibe for a portion of the film. One was called Aftermath and one was called Dream. Dream was the sort of vibe that we wanted for definitely the very ending, the very last frames where the night god is kind of aware of the magic of the museum. It had that sort of a magical twang. And Aftermath had this sort of classical, thicker drop. I'm sure that's not the correct terminology, and anyone who appreciates classical music will slaughter me for this. But it had this build-up that would have worked perfectly with a ballet finale.
But that was also a really important point as well. Our lovely dancers actually had to create the choreography until after we'd made the entire film. We didn't have the final song that we were going to use.
No.
So we cut out the drop from Aftermath and we gave that to the choreographer and the dancers. That's how that worked without actually us having the song to go and use on the day.
Yeah, and a big shout out here to Anya, who was the choreographer. Once we had our final music, it was actually really quite easy to replace the Aftermath track under the dance, because we kept it within the same tempo, the same BPM.
It was a really funny experience. Speaking to Bartek, actually trying to tell him like what we were looking for.
Can you just make it sound like
And now we're into like the individual dance sequence, and none of these shots were really planned beforehand. This was kind of like our bread and butter. We turn up, something's happening, we film it.
Yeah.
So we had some ideas about sort of the angles and stuff like that, but we had no idea what dances the dancers had prepared, so we just were quite open. The only shot we planned was the dancer here pretending to be another statue, and also the dancer spinning past the door frame. We thought that would be quite cool with a nice dolly in.
Punching, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the final shot before the grand finale, the zoom in on the three dancers. I was really excited about this shot. I think we did the best that we could, because I think it was actually technically really quite difficult. But it was kind of my way of sprinkling the air of possibility that the night god knows what's going on.
Is that final sort of mini spike before the big spike?
All very technical film terms. This was really hard to get right, and I actually just counted the dancers in like 3, 2, 1, and then they froze as Bart literally ran at them full speed.
You jammed them with the gimbal.
Tried to also add some keyframing on this as well to make sure that the positioning was right, that they were quite central, but also to add like a more dramatic punch in.
Yeah, and the fact that it sort of rings out and there's that moment of sort of peace and quiet is just a perfect symbolic drum roll before the climax. Is the final bit of foreplay before the
release.
Yeah. And now we're on to the finale, which was actually Sazil's favourite bit to edit, and I think it genuinely would have been mine as well.
It was a dream. It was so much fun. I just completely got into that flow state, and I'm pretty sure I had it wrapped up in like a couple of hours, maybe even less. We did have a lovely comment on our short film asking how we achieved this. We're going to show you.
We absolutely brutalised our lovely ballerinas, and we got them to repeat their carefully crafted choreography probably about 15 times. Maybe it was more like 25, I don't actually know, but it was many, many times.
This is a real and honest look at my timeline. I haven't tidied this up at all.
The finale has layers like an ogre.
Why are you like
Shrek
this?
quote?
Just so you can get a legit look through the eyes of an editor and see how many layers there are, like an onion.
Like an ogre.
We started capturing the dancers a few times from a tripod, and one of those tripod shots became the base for the entire finale sequence.
The cornerstone, as it were. Once we had finished the tripod shots, we did the remaining shots on the gimbal, and we got up close and personal with the dancers.
You definitely did.
Yes, once or twice.
We've got that on video.
Yeah. Sorry.
We wanted the dance to really feel like a performance, so they are mostly from the front, and they also kind of follow the movement of the dance. So from as the dancers are moving left, we would move left with them, and it was all kind of like flowy, and
we had to join the imagery with the music sort of as if in a musical.
Good words.
Thank you.
So yeah, there's some dotted closer-up shots of detailed shoes, some from within the triolade of dancers, to add like speed and intensity as well, because this is the finale. We don't really want many shots coming from the tripod here. We want it to be dynamic. This shot here is from the ladder, which was rather terrifying.
I hate heights, I really do.
And then it was all about just lining these shots up. As we previously mentioned, the dancers were dancing on site to the song Aftermath. And that real-time audio was really useful for lining up the song. You just
layered it like an onion.
That was really simple. You just found where the good bits were and
where the motion that we wanted aligned.
Cut and chopped.
The whole project was filmed in 4K 30 FPS in a log setting in the Pro mode of the native camera app. That's rather a mouthful. The timeline is in 24 FPS, which meant that we slowed everything down to 80% speed, giving it this nice, smooth, cinematic, dreamy vibe and look.
Dreamy but still realistic. Like there's no way you can tell that anything is slowed down, but it just adds that slow and peaceful look.
Wonderful. And the dance sequence itself, we left in 100% speed, which helps to enhance that dynamic motion.
Adds a contrast of speed as well.
We wanted it to pack a punch, and this was the technical way to add that punchy sauce.
Unfortunately, there is no 4K 24 in the native camera app. You would have to get something like Filmmaker Pro or the Moment app, for example.
I don't even know if that would do it. I don't know. If you do know, let us know in the comments, because I'm not sure about that.
We got around it perfectly fine.
Yeah, and in fact used it to our advantage.
Yeah, the statue shot was reversed with a hold, a keyframe zoom out, and the dust particles like earlier to make that camera movement contrast with the stillness of the statue, just like before, and really finish off that sequence.
And as for this shot, funny story actually. Someone was tasked with the fairly menial job, you would think, of designing this notification in Photoshop. And anyway, I made a beautiful notification, but a small spelling mistake crept in. I mean, Sally's excused, it was in Polish. So on filming day, we got a number of these top-down phone shots, and they all have the spelling mistake in.
We had to head out after the shoot, like literally like a week later, in our local town and try and find a similarly lit street with cobblestones where we could film this shot again with the correct home screen.
But I don't think you'd be able to tell.
We did try this shot with a green screen because we were also hoping to make it available also in English with a fully English home screen, but we quickly abandoned that idea. And yeah, this whole scene location was lit with a single archaic street lamp and this tiny little Litra lamp. Yeah, this tiny little light is amazing. We've used it so much already.
It's really powerful for its size.
I literally was just walking from one side trying to light up his face a little bit more, especially with the phone shot where the screen is supposed to be like reflecting on his face. This was also added in those shots. Okay, and that's it. Thanks so much for watching. We hope this breakdown was useful for you.
Yeah, we hope we've broken it down enough, like a good old enzyme.
What is wrong with you? Is it because it's late? We hope it was useful for you to see what it's like on set, to see what it's like doing a client shoot, what it's like to make a short film. It's been a pleasure having you.
Like this vid if you did. Subscribe to our channel to see more of our faces.
Bye.